So the Vastu Vidya, so the background is all set right now. So there is a Purusha in the Chidakasha who is Mahapurusha. And there's a Purusha in the Bhutakasha who is Vastu Purusha, the Vastuspati. So in there he is the Lord of the cosmos, Mahat Mahoriyan. And here he is the Lord of the environment. He is the Vastuspati. And he controls whatever we design. So in this room, for example, there is somewhere a centrality, and that is not geometrical perfectly, it's an understanding, a centrality. If I take you to a big family, and suppose I invite madam to my family and say, madam, this is my father, this is my mother, this is my uncle, this is my auntie, but he is my grandfather who represents the lineage of the family, and if you talk to him, you know about the whole family. So the grandfather or the grandmother represents the Brahmasthanam of the whole family. It doesn't mean that the grandfather has to geometrically sit in the center on a chair and define that center. That center is metaphysical. He can sit, he cannot sit. So there could be a linear and a non-linear approach to that center. So this is actually the Vastuspati Mandala, and the Rig Veda, 7th Mandala, 54 Sutra, and the 55th Sutra expands on the Vastuspurita Mandala. So right in the Shrutis, Vastukala starts. And the word Vasa, which means to dwell, Isa Vashyamidam, Vasa, has formed so many words. I'm not reading because we don't have time for them. Vasuvidya, which means the science of earth dwelling. Vasava, who is the Lord of art. Vasundhara, which is earth itself. Vasati, its dwelling. If you call it Basti, it becomes squatter settlements. So they have all come from these words. Whereas the Latin and the Greek words are like base, boss, omnibus. In South we have Srinivas. So all these words, they all come from Srinivasam. That means the Lord dwells in the cosmos. He's just not transcendental, but he's also Premamaya, Kripamaya, Dayamaya. He's right inside. He's just not Bhayal, but he's also Dayal. Bhayal, Dayal. So these two sides of the divinity is so. And in ancient Rome, he was known as Vesta, which is, so the ancient Rome at some point of time also had a Shastra like India, which is like Vastu Sat Shastra. And Vesta was the ancient Etruscan, pre-Roman goddess of the science of built environment. That's a separate research altogether. So I am going to share with about 7 small, this is my little work or our little work, and we have checked it again and again and again. So there are about 7 things, 7 principles that comes out of this understanding. One is this principle of recursion, which I've already talked about, so let's not spend time on this. So as above, as below. And somebody picked it up in the Greeks, that was Plato and Protagoras, and then the idea sank in the medieval ages. And then it was picked up again by Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci, the Vitruvian man. Man is the measure of all things. Pindame Brahmand. Pindame Brahmand. I measure, if I am not there, who is going to measure this universe? If you are not here in this auditorium, who is going to listen to my lecture? I'm giving you a very crude example. Suppose I just ask you, all of you leave. Please don't mind, this is a very bad example. And suppose I get 10 cats and 15 dogs to come here and sit, and I deliver this lecture. Will that lecture work? It has no existence in the realm of cats and dogs. So that means there is actually no objective universe. It's all subjective. That means my lecture gets reflected in your consciousness, and that is the meaning, and that is called the anthropic principle. So it is anthropocentric, not in evolution, but in the evolution of consciousness. So that means the consciousness which is latent in a dog gets evolved in the human being and becomes bloomed in a rishi. So that means this whole journey of consciousness is the whole. So this is a principle of recursion. And here are some examples. One is 750 AD, right on the Kailashnath temple of Ellora, built by the Rashtrakutas. You see a principle of recursion. So the top of the temple, you can see that the top of the temple reflects the cosmos. So the matrix of the cosmos is footprinted on the top of the temple. So the top of the temple is the lowest point of the universe. The top of the temple is the lowest point of the universe. that is one of the evidence in in Western Ghats, Kailashnath. And today, I think some of you know, in a place called Sindhudurg in Ratnagiri, a lot of petroglyphs have been found out, and this has been carbon dated to 12,000 BCE. The Deccan College of Pune has found out, and I've included it as a part of my book as an annexure. And you can see there are about 12 spokes, and there's a clear hint of the swastika and the anthropic man, which shows somewhere about 14,000 years back, India had a clear-cut knowledge of heliocentrism, the 12 months and Earth's rotation around the sun. If they wouldn't have known this, they could not draw this petroglyph. Right? So right at 14,000 years back, India had a clear knowledge of heliocentrism. So it's a very ancient country. So all these things, 2,000 years back, 3,000 years back, is all fine, but they're not true. We need to look at history in a much more detailed way. There are works by Daniken, mysterious, Graham Hancock, and many other people, but we need to portray it scientifically. Let's move on. So this is the whole recursion, which is actually explained in the Gita, Urdha Moolam Adhashwakam. Urdha Moolam Adhashwakam Ashwatham Prahu Abbayam. So it is Abbayam, that means it's eternal. Abbayam. Bayam means you're spending, it's economics. Idhar mein 100 rupiya hai, spending karte karte khatam ho gaya. But Abbayam means I'm spending continuously. So that means my expenditure patterns in this universe is continuously supported from the Urdhva Moolam, Abbayam. So this is not economics material, this is economics spiritual, Artha Shastra. So this is Akhand Prabaha, Prahur Abbayam, and who understands the connection between the upper and the lower? That is Chanda, Chandangshi. So the tree which I have cut and gone to the Moolam, that tree resprouts again. Please understand this. The tree which I have traced to the root, again the new tree is born, Ashwatham, the Bodhi tree of Buddha, or the Bodhi tree of Pippalad, Maharshi Pippalad. It is all there continuous. Again sprouts with green leaves, and Yasha Parnani, every leaf represents the Chanda of the upper and the above. So the resprouting, the greening, the environmental dynamics of the tree. See this sloka of the Gita. It talks about environmental dynamics, the green environment, the green policies of today. So what the United Nations Environmental Program is talking about in 20th century is there in the Gita for thousands of years. The greening of the environment. Parnani, the leaves, the foliage, which represents the connection. So I have traced the roots, and again I have come back to the new tree. So my new tree contains the seed which comes from the fruit of the old tree. So this is what Tagore says, Tarango milaye jaye, tarango uthe. The waves are collapsing, but the new waves are surging. Kushuma jhodiya pade, kushuma pote. The old flowers are dying, so what? The new flowers are blooming. So life is continuous. Urdha Moolam Adhashakam Prahur Abbayam. So the cycle is going Abbayam. And Chandangshi Yasya Parnami Yasyam Veda. So somebody who knows that Chanda, he is a Vedavid. He is a Vedavid. He is the Rishi. What a beautiful definition based on rhythms and meters and Chanda. That means he is not mysterious. He is not magical. But he knows the Chandas between the upper crown and the lower crown. He is a Rishi. And who has a full control of it? He is either a Devarshi like Narad or a Brahmarshi like Bhrigu. So they are like the Rishis of the Rishis, Param Rishis. The Mundak Upanishads talks about Param Rishis, the Rishis of the Rishis. I mean, if they come, they can make you a Rishi, make me a Rishi. They are not Rishis, they are Rishis of the Rishis, the Param Rishis. Our entire spirituality of India belongs to the Rishis of the Rishis, the Brahma Rishis and the Devarshis, and their representation, the Rajarshis. The Gita is actually a scripture of the Rajarshis, the Kshatriyas. The Gita is not Brahminical, it's Kshatriya. It's Kshatriya Parampara. Most of our avatars are all Kshatriyas. Rama, Krishna, Aurobindo, Vivekananda. They are all Kshatriyas. So about 90% of our spiritual traditions, our Upanishads are all Khatra. Brahma Teja, okay, but Khatra Virya. It's a combination of the two sides. So most of our history books written in the last 100 years is almost an error where Indian history has been interpreted as Brahminical. That's a fundamental mistake. That's a fundamental mistake in most of the book. Nobody is to be blamed because we have not taken care of it. So let's move on. So this is how we explain the whole thing. So the data of the universe, let me come here. The data of the universe is visible in the movement of the pendulum, which is linear and cyclic. And it's also depicted by the hierarchy of minds, which is explained by Abraham Maslow. That's Maslow's hierarchy of minds. So Sri Aurobindo's hierarchy of minds gets reflected in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So the hierarchy of minds are inside, the hierarchy of needs are outside. So this is the whole foundation. And that is depicted in the Rig Veda like a hydrological cycle, like a temperature cycle, like a weather cycle. So the Agni is going up and the Brishti, the Soma, is coming down. So the water below is going up as clouds. So this is Purva Megham. And then again, it's dropping down the rain, and the rain is becoming the rivers are going to the ocean are again becoming clouds, Uttar Megham, and again it's going. And that is how Kalidas composes his Meghdutam. And that is the whole foundation of the Sam Veda. Purva Archik and Uttar Archik. So Purva does not mean east only, it also means past. Uttar does not mean north only, it also means future. So most of our Sanskrit words are space and time. You see that? This is the foundation of science. This is the foundation of a beautifully perfected language system, not a language called Sanskrit, where most of the words have a spatial and a temporal connotation. About 1,000 years before Albert Einstein, such a development was done by the Indian sages, where every word has multiple etymological synonyms. They represent various meanings with different intonations and combination. That is the whole foundation of Sanskrit. And you find that in 1.164. We come to the second depiction, which is the mirror as a footfall. And this is a diagram for which I don't have time to explain. So this is a Surya Mandala. So this is the Dasam. In the Rig Veda, it's called the Dasagya. So the rishis are climbing up to the sun. Navagya Dasagya. If you read Sri Aurobindo's Secret of the Vedas, you'll know. So the past is again becoming the future. Kritasmara, Kratusmara, Kritasmara, Kratusmara. It's mentioned in the Isha Upanishad. Remember what has done in the past. Let us remember what shall be done in the future. And it's always a space-time connect. It's always that is the ending of the Isha Upanishad. Purva Uttara, fast forward, past forward. It's going like this. So this is reflected in the Surya Mandala. And the Surya Mandala you can see, the Surya Mandala, if you take a linear collapse, you get the 7 rays, which is the septuplet. That is the representation of the Sapta Dhenu, Dhenava, the Sapta Buha, the Sapta Rashmi, the Sapta Chanda, the Sapta Matrikas. There's a foundational truth, and they all converge. This is physics, diffraction, to the Ashtama, Bakashtami, and Bhag Ashtami, and they represent the word of God. It's there in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, and this is depicted as a footfall, So this is how we have, I just presented this thought just a week back in Sri Aurobindo Ashram in Delhi, and I was the only person in that conference who did not know Sanskrit, and then the rest 99% knew Sanskrit, but at the end of the conference they liked what I said, so I got a certificate that things are fine and things are not bad. Okay, so this is the whole thing, which is a depiction of the mirror as a footfall. Is there a science? Yes, there is a science. And this is described in the Chandogya Upanishad, where the whole ekam sad vipra vahuda vadanti. So it's like a chandelier. I need to move fast. It's like a chandelier. So in the chandelier, how much of light is there? There's only one light. And all the others are glass particles. But when you look at the chandelier, how many lights you see? If there are 100 glass particles, you see 100 lights. If there are 1,000 glass particles, you see 1,000 lights. If there are 1 million glass particles, you see 1 million lights. And in each of those glass particles, you see the light. And that entire light you see by a principle of physics, which you call total internal reflection. So there's one light, ekam sat vipra, which is reflected in thousands of glass particles, bahuda vadanti. So the chandelier, the Madhu Chakram. There's one queen bee in the Madhu Chakram, which is controlling. Like Richadi is a queen bee of this conference. And she is, I'm just saying, I'm just using an example. And we are all the small bees, working with her. And we are forming a Madhu Chakra, which is a Mauchak, which is the FDP Yagya. The Yagya is going on. So the Rishis has described the Surya Mandala as a Madhu Chakra. And the nectar of the flower, which is converted into something immortal, which is honey, is called Madhu Vidya. So the principle of Madhu, immortality in the Upanishads, is called the principle of transferring the nectar, Bhutakash, to honey, Chidakash. That is the whole principle. So that principle comes again and again. And all our traditions, all our temples, all our architecture, all our interior decoration, Shish Mahalam of Sufism in Agra Fort or in others, even in Islamic Sufi tradition, they follow that one Noor becoming millions. Islam, they emphasize the multiplicity. So the moon, the lunar side. In India and in Christianity, they emphasize the solar side, Adityam, the day side. But the two sides are together. That's why in Indian calendar, you have both the solar and the lunar. So we are inclusive of Christianity and Islam, and something more than that also. So that is the whole beauty. That is the whole beauty of the Indian ethos. Let's move fast. So from there we move on to something which is the foundation of Indian architecture, and that is the footprint, which is the mandala. Akhanda mandala akaram vyaptam yena characharam tatpadam darshitam yana tasmai se gurudev nama. That means that truth right there is actually explained by someone who is right here. So that truth has come in my life as a guru. When the job is done, he'll vanish. So Vashdev said to Shukracharya that before you get Brahmagana, give me the Guru Dakshina. Because after Brahmagana, you won't have a difference between you and me. It will be all gone. So this is a beautiful symbol. So this is a book which I have written. It's a textbook in many colleges. That's not so important. So the mandala is actually the foundation, and the mandala actually becomes a geometry. So this is what we do, architects and vastubids and sutradhars. So the whole cosmic geometry, the movement, is actually implanted. So everything is a chord. Chord means arc. Arch means archery. Archery means jaya. Jaya ka andar mein matra, measurements kya hai? That is jaya matra. That is geometry. That is the evolution of, so the whole geometry has evolved from the cosmic footprint. The whole of mathematics, the whole of geometry is an evolution of the Akhanda Mandala. So the entire mathematical principle of Ganita, Shakha, and then going to the roots, Bij Ganita, which is algebra, and its ramification on the drawings, which is Jayamatra, is the whole foundation, the crown of Indian science. And the application of that is Vastukala, architecture. You build a building. You give it a space.